I'm Serena Marsh. At 37, I learned a house can be stolen while you're off guarding the country that prints the deeds. I spent 10 years saving for one thing: a seaside house for my parents, Walt and Joan, married 50 years, poor for most of them. I closed on it from a base overseas. I flew home to hand them the keys at their anniversary. But when I came up the gravel drive, my mother was crying on the porch. My father sat trembling on the steps with 2 suitcases between his feet. And a woman I'd married into pointed at my mother and screamed, "This is our house. Get out." 3 strange cars filled the yard. My husband's family had moved in while I was deployed, and I still hadn't seen what they'd done to the inside or learned where the money was really going. My parents married in 1975 with $40 and a borrowed truck. My father fixed tractors in a gravel lot outside Roseburg, Oregon. My mother polished other people's furniture for cash. When I was 9, we drove to the coast once, and she stood at the rail, closed her eyes at the sound of the water, and said, "Wouldn't that be something to fall asleep to that?" I never forgot it. I went to college on an ROTC scholarship. Logistics officer, then captain, then major. 10 years of saving. Deployment pay, a small inheritance, every bonus. Last spring, I closed on a weathered house on a bluff in Harlan Cove, Lincoln County. $425,000. Deed in my name alone. I signed the papers from a folding desk 8,000 miles away. I'd never set foot inside it. The plan was simple. Drive my parents up for their 50th, put the key in my mother's hand, watch her close her eyes at the sound of the water. My husband Kyle offered to handle the house while I finished my tour. Get it cleaned, the porch sealed, ready for the party. It was the one helpful thing he'd offered in years. I was grateful. That should have been my first warning. The utility bills started climbing. I asked Kyle on a scratchy call. He said he'd forward the login so I could check myself. He never did. My parents mentioned lightly that Kyle's people had been out at the coast a lot lately, helping. My mother is too kind to gossip, so when she says something twice, it means something. Kyle sent one photo to settle me. The living room cropped tight on a single corner like a real estate listing hiding a water stain. I don't panic. It's a tool I sharpened in rooms where panic got people hurt. But calm has a cost, and mine had a name. Over-responsibility. For 20 years, when something broke, the call came to me. So when Kyle's mother needed a place to land and Kyle said, "Just for a little while," I said yes from across the ocean without thinking hard enough. I landed in Portland on a gray Thursday, rented a car still in uniform, and drove 2.5 hours to the coast. The key sat in my breast pocket the whole flight. Then I made the last turn onto the gravel and my foot came off the gas. 3 cars I didn't know in the drive. A folding sign in my mother's flower bed. Guest parking. And the porch railing where my father had hung brass wind chimes for their anniversary. Bare. Just an empty hook. My mother, 72, stood crying with her hand over her mouth. My father sat below her with 2 packed suitcases, his hands shaking worse than his Parkinson's usually made them shake. The screen door banged. Brenda, my mother-in-law, crossed the porch in 3 steps and pointed at the driveway. "This is our house, get out." My mother flinched like she'd been slapped. I set my duffel down slowly and let the silence do the first part of the work. The strangers looked at my uniform. Brenda half-turned, irritated, then actually looked at my face. "Serena," she said. Just my name. I walked past her into the house I'd bought and never seen. Brass numerals were screwed into the bedroom doors. 1, 2, 3. My mother's future kitchen had a folding table, a guest book, single-serve coffee pods, and a laminated sign. Check-in 3 p.m. Kyle's brother Dustin came down the hall carrying folded towels like a bellhop. Kyle stood in the front room, his face coming apart. "You're running it like a hotel," I said. Not a question. I turned around, crouched in front of my father on the porch. "Dad, we're getting a clean room with 2 beds tonight." I carried their suitcases to the rental car myself, past Brenda, who'd gone quiet, working out the math of the uniform and the name. That night, in a motel under a buzzing parking lot light, I made a list. Who was living in my house? Since when? Who'd put the listing up? Who was holding the money? The next morning I found Paula Renner, real estate and landlord-tenant attorney. Office above a bait shop in Newport. I laid the deed on her desk, my name only. She gave me the bad news first, the way good lawyers do. In Oregon, once someone's been residing in a place, you can't just change the locks. That's a self-help eviction, and it's illegal. You go through the court. It's called infed, forcible entry and detainer, slower than you want, also bulletproof. Then she leaned forward. You said they're renting rooms on a booking site? They don't own it. That's a different animal. Out here, that needs a county permit and lodging tax. If they've got neither, you've got leverage. I went back to the house to try it the civilized way. Brenda was in my mother's porch chair with Kyle's Aunt Marlene. This is my house, I said evenly. My parents are moving in. Brenda laughed. Your house? You people are farm people. You don't know how to make a thing like this work. Then satisfied. Honey, you were never really one of us. As I turned to leave, she bragged. We're booked solid through the month. She'd just told me, free of charge, that the listing was live and full. That night I found it in 4 minutes. Harlan Cove beachfront retreat. Coastal luxury, sleeps 8. Host, Dustin. $340 a night. The cover photo was the master bedroom, the one I'd picked for my parents, staged with hotel linens. Near the bottom, one photo of the pool cottage out back, captioned, Owner's quarters private, please do not disturb. They'd taken the ocean room and sold it by the night. They'd folded my 74-year-old father into a storage shed and labeled it for guests. The next morning, my mother told me the rest, slow, over motel coffee. Dustin had met them in the driveway the day they arrived, told them there'd been a scheduling overlap, asked if they'd mind the cottage just for the busy season. My parents, who have never wanted to be a bother, said of course. Brenda told my mother not to use the kitchen in case it confused the guests. The third day, Dustin told my father a guest complained about noise from the wind chimes, so my father climbed onto a chair with his shaking hands, took them down and wrapped them in a dish towel. I'm sorry, Bug, he told me. I didn't want to make trouble for you. That was when it stopped being grief and went cold and clean and useful. I found a windowed envelope addressed to Kyle on the hall table. Red stamp. Final notice. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The cellophane window showed the figures plainly. Whatever Kyle was drowning in, the lifeline he'd grabbed was my parents' house. The next day I found the laminated welcome card on the kitchen counter. Wi-Fi password, checkout time, and near the bottom, please do not enter the pool cottage. Owner's storage. My parents were the owner's storage. I photographed it front and back, put it in my jacket pocket next to my unit's challenge coin, the one I'd carried through 2 deployments, 2 pieces of cold metal in one pocket. I knew which one I was keeping. Paula built it like a campaign. The Fed notice. A complaint to county code enforcement for the unpermitted rental. A report to the booking platform itself, with the deed attached, since their own rules don't allow a non-owner to rent a property over the real owner's written objection. Kyle came to the motel that night and told me the truth. His contracting business had collapsed 18 months earlier. He owed nearly $60,000 he'd never told me about. For 1 minute standing in that parking lot, I felt for him. Then he said, So, can you just let it go? It's marital property anyway, Serena. Half of it's basically mine. He wasn't drowning anymore. He was reaching out of the water to pull my parents down with him. I'm sorry about the debt, I said. I filed the paperwork this afternoon. The process server delivered notices 2 days later. Brenda tore hers in half in the server's face. Served is served whether you keep the paper or confetti it. A guest staying in my house, a school teacher from Boise named Carol, got an automated notice that the listing was under ownership dispute. She did her own digging, found the county property record with my name on it, and reached out. We don't want any part of taking your home. Tell us what's right and we'll do it. She offered to stand in the yard Saturday and say she'd rented from Dustin, not from me. Friday, the booking platform took the listing down, canceled every pending booking, froze the payouts. County code enforcement posted a cease and desist on the front door. That Friday night, my father handed me back the chimes he'd kept safe and asked, Are we going to get it back, Bug? I pressed my challenge coin into his shaking hand instead. Hold on to that for me until Saturday. It's never let me down. Saturday, 50 years and a reckoning. The yard filled with both families, folding chairs, potato salad. Brenda played hostess, accepting compliments on her beautiful place by the sea, the county notice taped to the door 6 feet behind her. I walked up the gravel in uniform. The yard noticed. Conversation thinned. Brenda saw me last. She crossed toward me with her wine and her audience. Is the major here to ruin her own parents' party? Going to make a scene? I set my cup down. I took the documents from my folder and laid them flat on the table, one at a time. The deed, the court filing, the cease and desist, the platform's removal notice. I'm not going to make a scene, Brenda. I don't need to. A beat. I'm calm. That should worry you. Brenda's eyes went to the deed. Her smile slid. She got louder to cover the drop. This is my family's house. We made it work. I put one finger on the deed, turned it so the nearest relatives could read it. There's one name on this title. It isn't Kyle's. It isn't Voss. It's mine. Paula confirmed it from the edge of the crowd. Filed eviction, signed order coming, unpermitted rental. Carol stood up from the porch steps. My husband and I paid $2,000 to a man named Dustin to stay in this house. We had no idea it wasn't his to rent. Heads turned to Dustin, gray-faced, his phone full of cancellation emails. Brenda played her last card. You were never one of us. You're right, I said. I'm not one of you. I'm the one who owns the door. Then I named the consequences, plain and countable. You're out by 5 or the sheriff enforces the order. The frozen rental money goes to the unpaid lodging tax and in Dustin's name. If you'd asked me for help, I'd have helped you. You didn't ask, you took, and you put my mother in a shed. They left before 5. Dustin first. Marlene without a word. Brenda took the longest, making a small ceremony of packing, waiting for someone to stop her. No one did. Kyle stood in the middle of the yard the whole time, belonging to neither side, having used up a month of chances to say this is wrong and saying nothing instead. I tore the laminated welcome card in half on the porch and let the pieces fall. The house went quiet. The good kind. My mother walked into her kitchen, turned in a slow circle, found a rag and a bottle under the sink, and started polishing the banister. Within an hour, the whole downstairs smelled like lemon oil again. My father carried the wind chimes out and hung them back on the hook. The wind came off the water and rang them. My mother heard it through the screen and closed her eyes, exactly the way she had at a railing when I was 9. He tried to hand the challenge coin back. I closed his fingers around it again. Keep it, Dad. You held the line same as I ever did. Kyle and I talked the next morning on the bluff. He led with the debt again, the way drowning men lead with the water. Surely we could find a way through, as a family. I'm sorry about the debt, I said, level. But you let your family put my mother in a storage shed and rent her bedroom by the night. And when I fought it, you asked me to stop. The house is my parents'. The debt is yours. We're done. He said I was choosing them over him. I said I was choosing not to let him cost my parents their home. And both could be true at once. He didn't have an answer. There wasn't one. Loving someone has never meant handing them the keys to everything you built. Sometimes the kindest, fiercest thing you can do is put your name on the deed and keep it there.